divorce. Well, the law that they are debating basically says that if a man has a wife and he dies before they have children, then she is to be given to his brother, so that children can be born in his deceased brother's name. In the Sadducees' hypothetical situation, the woman is married and childless with 7 brothers in succession. Now, Jesus has been preaching the resurrection, and the Sadducees, understanding resurrection to be a continuation of this life, but after we die here, they do not believe that there is a resurrection. Their argument for the lawyers in the room regarding this particular rule is that while Moses' law allows for a woman to be married to 7 different men at different times in this life, there is no provision for her to be married to all 7 of them at the same time. So they cannot all be alive at the same time in a resurrected life. This is proof that the resurrection cannot be, because if Moses' law doesn't work in the resurrection, then the resurrection that is to come is an impossibility. Now, let me stop here and say that there are people, maybe even people in this room, who shut down. They stop listening to this story at the moment the Bible says that there is a law given by Moses from God that allows a woman to be passed to man after man after man with no consideration for her. It's appalling. A woman has lost her husband. She's grieving. She's in shock. She is a human being in pain. And you're just going to give her to another man. In our 21st century, postmodern way of thinking, this rule is barbaric. This is patriarchy at its worst. And the Bible is completely antiquated and unrelatable. But stay with me. We need to ask the question, why was this law written? Well, before this rule existed, once a marriage had taken place, no matter what the financial compensation was, a woman's family was no longer responsible for her. She was her husband's family's burden. She was their liability. And if her husband died, her tie to his family was gone, unless they had children. And then she was tied to her husband's family through their blood relationship to those children, and his family would continue to take care of her. But no husband, no kids, no family ties. She was out on her own. Now, maybe her family would take her back, or her husband's family would allow her to continue on with them as a servant, but they had no obligation to do that. And this woman on her own had no societal value, no way to make a living except maybe prostitution, and she no longer had the protection of her family. She is going to be destitute. She is going to be homeless. She is most definitely going to be raped, and soon she is going to be dead. Now, the law itself, which can be found in Deuteronomy, says that she and her brother-in-law are to make children in her dead husband's name, to continue his bloodline. And while this can still feel like a barbaric tradition that forces a woman into a terrible situation, it's important to understand that in the culture of the Deuteronomistic writers, that's a cool word, but the writers of Deuteronomy, ostensibly Moses, that is the purpose of the woman, to propagate her husband's bloodline. If she cannot do so, she cannot fulfill her life purpose, and that makes her valueless in their society. What this law does is force her husband's family to allow her to fulfill her purpose. And not only does the law line that out, it gives her recourse if they refuse. If her brother-in-law refuses to marry her, she has the power to force him to do so, or he risks dishonoring his entire family in the presence of the elders and throughout all of Israel. So yes, it's still not 21st century acceptable, but this law gave a powerless woman the power to save herself from destitution, homelessness, rape, and death. It is completely mind-blowing for its time. It is a giant leap forward in human understanding. So, 1,500-ish years after this law is written down, the Sadducees take it to Jesus as a way to debunk his resurrection message. And he says something just as mind-blowing for their time. He passes over their bogus hypothetical situation, and he just says, in the resurrection, people won't even be married. Mind-blowing. Just like the law that the Sadducees came to debate being a leap forward in human understanding, Jesus' new understanding, this new idea that he presents, is another leap. Because what Jesus' leap is saying is that women are human beings who do not need to be married to have value, do not need to fulfill the propagation of their husband's bloodline to be worthy. This societal measure of a person's value is going to be replaced by God's measure in the resurrection. Now, a couple thousand years later, to us, this revelation of how a woman's worth is determined isn't quite so mind-blowing. Our understanding has taken another leap. So here's what I think. The Bible is, among many other things, a library of books that tells the story of a people growing through our relationship with God. Taking these leaps from what we are to what we can be, who we are meant to be in the fullness of our relationship with God. So if we hear these stories and think, how barbaric, how antiquated, instead of seeing that as the Bible being unrelatable, perhaps what we are seeing is that we are living. We don't systematically pass a woman from brother to brother because her worth is in her ability to propagate a man's bloodline. But we are still, in our own 21st century way, missing the kingdom of God, the world of the resurrection, which is what the Sadducees came to discuss in the first place. When Jesus responds to the Sadducees and what the gospel writers and Paul tell us all over the place is that the world of the kingdom of God, that the world of the resurrection is here and now. It is in the midst of us. One gospel writer says it's within us. And because we are in the resurrection now, we have no need of societal standing to define our worth. Jesus uses marriage as an example, but he is talking about all cultural value systems being meaningless. Because the resurrection is now. And it is as people of the resurrection that we are given our value now. Let's be honest. There are so many cultural value measurements that we use every day. Measurements based on nothing as monumental as Mosaic law. Cultural measurement systems based on petty things. What kind of car does a person drive? What neighborhood do they live in? Where did they go to school? What is their profession? Who are their friends? Petty things that we use to determine a person's social standing, to determine if they are worthy. The issue here is that we are culturally programmed when we need to be resurrectionally Jesus is telling the Sadducees and us that very thing. If you measure your value outside of the resurrection, outside of the kingdom of God, your value has no meaning. And the flip side to that is if you measure the value of others outside of the resurrection, outside of the kingdom of God, your measurement has no meaning because their value is also in the resurrection. Mind-blowing. So, here we all are, in the resurrection, in God's kingdom, here, right now. We have this resurrection value, this worthiness. We all are, as angels, children of God. Now what? John tells us in chapter 14 of his gospel that Jesus says that those who believe in him will go on to do as he has done and greater things. Greater things. So now, we must leap as Jesus did. We must continue to leap into greater understanding, leaping closer and closer to the fullness of our relationship with God. Leaping into the example that Jesus set for us. Leaping and growing in greater ways than Jesus. That is what Jesus said we would do. Now, we will leap, I think, with the help of our friends, just like Jesus did. Because he had friends, and he had benefactors, and he had the women who ministered to him, and he had people who went around with him, and he had support and help. And look around you. Go ahead, look around you. You are surrounded by friends in the resurrection. Now, if we can for a moment shrink down the kingdom of God into this space and reality, think of it as a place. When we here at St. Mark's are in our little corner of it, in our sacred space. And here, we can support one another so we can grow and move. And here we can lift one another as we come to those greater things that Jesus intended for us. Here we can help one another on our journey to becoming that which we are meant to be through our relationship with God. I got one more line and then because what we're looking for, what we want, is to truly be angels, to truly be children of God, to truly be children of the resurrection. Amen.